My family treated me like their personal ATM for years, while my sister got everything. Years later, I got a promotion and they demanded I fund her lifestyle. Hey everyone, not really sure how to start this. I've been lurking here for a while, reading posts from people with tough family dynamics, and honestly, a lot of it hits way too close to home. Sorry if it's too long, I didn't plan to make it this detailed, but once I started typing, it just kept flowing. I am Peter, 23 male. I don't know how else to put this, but I feel like I wasn't really raised the way most people imagine when they talk about childhood. I was just kind of there, like physically in the house, part of the family in name, but not the priority. If I'm being completely honest, I always felt like the black sheep of the family. My sister was the golden child. She got all the attention, all the sympathy, all the understanding. Me? I was either invisible or the one getting blamed. It started really young. Like I remember being maybe 7 or 8, and my sister was having one of her meltdowns. She always had some kind of thing going on, whether it was trouble at school, panic attacks, mood swings. My mom would literally drop everything for her. I could be in the corner saying I had a stomach ache, or I needed help with homework, and she'd snap at me to stop being dramatic or to handle it myself. I learned really quickly that if my sister had a problem, mine didn't exist. I remember one birthday, I think I was 10, where I asked if I could invite some friends over. My mom said no because my sister wasn't in the right emotional space to deal with company. Instead, we had a quiet dinner at home, and the whole thing ended up being about my sister because she didn't like the food and had another breakdown. So my birthday dinner basically turned into a therapy session for her, and I was just sitting there pretending I was fine with it. And don't get me wrong, I love my sister. I don't blame her for needing help. She had real issues. But what kills me is how my parents treated her needs were the only needs that mattered. She got excuses for everything. She skipped school. She's sensitive. The school doesn't understand her. I forgot to take the trash out? Why are you so lazy? Why can't you be more responsible? Same house, same parents, but two completely different standards. It wasn't just about rules either. It was the way they spoke about us. My mom would tell family members how smart and special my sister was, how she had so much potential, how she just needed extra care. Me? If I came up in conversation, it was usually about how I was quiet or difficult sometimes, or how I needed to learn to help more. I never got praise. I was like the utility player in the background, the one keeping things running while she got to shine. The worst part is it seeps into your head. When you grow up always being second place, you start to believe you don't really deserve attention. I remember one time in high school, I actually got sick, like flu sick, fever, couldn't get out of bed. My mom still made me get up and go pick up groceries with her because my sister was too fragile to go outside. I dragged myself out of bed, dizzy, coughing, and carried bags while she fussed over my sister sitting comfortably in the car. I wanted to scream, but what was the point? If I complained, I'd just get told I was selfish. Looking back, I don't even think they realized how bad it was. I think my parents thought they were just doing their best with the child who needed more attention. But the reality is they completely neglected the other child in the process. And being stuck in that role from such a young age, the one who just had to deal with things alone, it sticks with you. So when I was around 16, everything shifted even more. My dad got this job abroad and suddenly he was gone most of the time. That meant the whole balance of the house changed. If I thought I was the forgotten kid before, now I was more like, congrats, you're your mom's unpaid therapist and emotional support animal now. I still remember the first week after my dad left. My mom came into my room around midnight, sat on the edge of my bed, and just started crying. Like full-on crying about bills, about being lonely, about not knowing if my dad was going to be faithful while he was overseas. And I was just sitting there, a 16-year-old kid who had homework to finish and an exam the next day, patting her on the back like, "It's going to be okay, Mom." I didn't even know what to say. I wasn't equipped for that, but she just kept doing it, night after night. It became a routine. I think this is when the scapegoat golden child thing really became obvious to me. During the day, she still babied my sister. My sister could skip school, lock herself in her room, throw tantrums, and my mom would rush in like she was caring for a queen. If I ever skipped school, rarely, because I was terrified of disappointing people, it turned into a lecture about how I was irresponsible like my dad, or setting a bad example. I was the bad one if I messed up, but my sister was fragile and special and had to be protected at all costs. My mom leaned on me for everything emotional. She'd call me during lunch at school to vent about bills or arguments with my dad. She'd ask me to be strong when she broke down. Meanwhile, my sister? She never had to hear a word of it. My mom protected her from all the hard truths. She wanted me to absorb it all while my sister lived in a bubble. And if I ever showed signs of stress or said I couldn't handle it, my mom flipped it on me. Oh, so now I can't even talk to my own son? Or, you're just like your father, Cold. The double standard was insane. Like one time, my mom was stressed about money and asked me to help her figure out the budget. I sat there with her trying to go through receipts, even though I barely understood half of it. Later that same night, my sister came in the room crying because her boyfriend didn't text her back. My mom dropped everything and spent hours comforting her. I just sat there like, really? I'm over here trying to help you keep the lights on, and she gets more sympathy because of some teenage drama? That was basically my life summed up. It wasn't just about emotional labor either. She expected me to pick up the slack physically too. My sister never had to do chores consistently. If she refused, my mom would say, she's not in the mood today, or she's too stressed. Me? If I didn't do it, I was lazy, disrespectful, and apparently didn't care about the family. If something went wrong in the house, like if the sink broke or the groceries weren't bought, guess whose fault it was? Mine as always. And the thing is, my sister played into it. She loved being their favorite, and she knew it. She'd rub it in sometimes. Like if I got in trouble, she'd say, why can't you just listen for once? She knew she could get away with almost anything. If she talked back to my mom, it was, she's just being passionate. If I did it, it was, you're disrespectful. The weight of it all really started to hit me around 17 to 18. That's supposed to be the age where you're figuring out who you are, thinking about college, hanging with friends. But I felt like I was living a double life. At school, I was just this quiet kid who kept his head down. At home, I was the stand-in husband, my emotional crutch, always absorbing everyone else's problems. There's this memory that still stings. I had a panic attack before an exam because I was so stressed. I came home and tried to talk to my mom about how I couldn't breathe and felt like I was dying. She literally brushed it off and said, stop being dramatic. You don't know real stress. Then my sister had a panic attack a few weeks later, and suddenly there were doctor appointments, therapy sessions, family meetings about how to support her. That's when I really understood my role. I was never going to get the same care. I the one expected to just deal with it. And the wild part is, nobody outside the house knew. To everyone else, my family looked normal. People thought we were close. They had no idea that behind closed doors, I was basically the one holding things together while being blamed for everything that went wrong. So by the time I hit 20, I honestly thought I had cracked the code. I got this internship in another city. It wasn't even paid well, but to me, it was freedom. My own place, even if tiny. My own space, my own rules. I was hyped. I thought finally, after years of being the family scapegoat, I was going to breathe a little bit. I was nervous telling my parents. And when I finally sat them down and explained, I should have known what was coming. They absolutely lost it. My mom started crying immediately, saying stuff like, you're abandoning us. You don't care about family. My dad got angry and called me selfish. And then, of course, my sister chimed in. She had this smug way of siding with them. She told me I was running away from my responsibilities, that I was just being dramatic, and that family comes first. I couldn't believe it. This is the same sister who skipped out on classes, dropped out of stuff halfway through, and got called brave for it. But me moving for a legitimate internship was apparently betrayal. Her mistakes were framed as personal growth. My ambitions were framed as selfishness. At first, I stood my ground. I told them I needed this opportunity, that it was important for my career, and that I couldn't just stay home forever. My mom cried harder. She started saying I was choosing strangers over family. And my dad went on a rant about how I'd forget where I came from, how I'd turn into one of those people who abandons their parents. My sister kept backing them up, nodding, saying things like he's just not grateful, or he doesn't understand how much we've sacrificed. It was overwhelming. I remember going to my room after that fight and just lying on my bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if maybe I was being selfish. That's the messed up thing about growing up the scapegoat. They train you to question yourself constantly. Like maybe I am ungrateful. Maybe I do owe them everything. Meanwhile, my sister never had to justify a single decision she made. She was always right by default. Anyway, I went ahead and moved for the internship. For the first time ever, I had some freedom. I could wake up when I wanted, eat what I wanted, not have someone yelling at me about chores or guilt-tripping me about money. It was small, but it felt huge. I started actually feeling like a person. But of course, they couldn't leave me alone. The calls started almost immediately. My mom would call crying, saying she couldn't sleep without me there, that she felt abandoned. My dad would leave voicemails calling me selfish and ungrateful. My sister would text things like, "You don't realize how much you're hurting mom," or "You've changed." It was constant pressure, and I cracked. After 3 months of guilt tripping, emotional manipulation, and nonstop accusations, I gave in. At 20, I left for 3 months but came back. Now, at 23, I planned differently. I told myself it made sense financially. Living at home was cheaper. But deep down, I know I was manipulated back. They broke me down until I believed I had no choice. Around the same time, she took a break from school. She just decided she wasn't going anymore for a while. My parents praised her for being in touch with her needs and protecting her mental health. They bragged to relatives about how she was prioritizing herself. Meanwhile, when I tried to prioritize myself, I was called selfish, brainwashed, and ungrateful. I remember one conversation really sticking with me. My mom said, "Your sister needs time to figure herself out, but you need to step up. You're the strong one." At the time, I didn't even realize how manipulative that was. What she really meant was, your sister gets freedom and compassion, but you don't. You get responsibility and guilt. I, the one they could dump everything on. My sister was shielded from consequences. And honestly, moving back was one of the lowest points in my life. I felt like a failure. I felt like I had let myself down. All I wanted was to build some independence, to start carving out my own path. But instead, I ended up right back in the same house, back in the same role, forgotten when it came to care, but front and center when it came to responsibility. My sister got to explore herself. I got to pay bills, do chores, and listen to my mom's midnight breakdowns again. The irony? Even after I moved back, they still treated me like I was untrustworthy. My mom would say things like, "Don't get any ideas about leaving again," or "Family is forever, you'll never leave us." Like I was some runaway they had to keep on a leash. And my sister? She'd smirk and say things like, "I knew you'd come crawling back." She got to feel superior for doing nothing, while I got shamed for trying to do something with my life. That internship was my first attempt at escaping, and I failed. So fast forward a few years, I'm 23 now. I finally got a decent job. It's not like I'm balling out or anything, but I make enough to cover myself, have some savings, and actually feel like I'm building something. And suddenly, the second I started earning more than my parents, it was like a switch flipped. I wasn't their kid anymore. I was their retirement plan, their safety net, their bailout package. My dad got laid off, and honestly, I felt bad for him at first. But instead of job hunting aggressively or figuring something out, he just kind of slumped into this, "Well, my son's working, he'll cover things" mentality. My mom still has her job, but it's unstable and honestly doesn't bring in much. And then there's their debt. It's like a mountain they've been ignoring for years. And now that I'm making money, suddenly it's my responsibility to help them manage it. The way they talk about it pisses me off. It's not even, "Can you help us for a bit?" It's, "We're so lucky to have you. We know you'll take care of us." They say it like it's already decided, like I signed a contract at birth saying I'd fund their lives. My mom makes little comments like, "When you're older and making more, we won't have to worry." My dad jokes about how I'll make sure we're comfortable. Except they're not jokes. They're dead serious. And it's not even about actual need half the time. Like, I wouldn't mind helping if they were really struggling and actually appreciated it, but they waste money constantly. My mom will complain about bills one minute, and then the next, she's buying random crap we don't need. My dad will say he's broke, then spend on stuff to cheer himself up. And when I point it out, I'm the ungrateful son who doesn't understand how hard life is. But if my sister spends recklessly, they laugh it off like, "Oh, she's young. She deserves to enjoy herself." There's this one conversation that sums it up. My mom said, "We know your sister's not as strong as you. She needs more support. But you're reliable. You'll always be here for us." I wanted to scream. Do you hear yourself? You're literally admitting the favoritism and still acting like it's justified. She gets freedom because she's fragile. I get chains because I'm strong. It's like being punished for being responsible. And the kicker is, they've failed to plan for anything. They didn't save for retirement. They didn't manage their debt. They just lived like everything would magically sort itself out. And now, instead of owning up to that, they're pinning it all on me. Like it's my duty to fix decades of bad decisions just because I happen to be their son. I can't even imagine what they'd do if I wasn't around. Probably still lean on me somehow, even from a distance. That's how deep the scapegoat role goes. The irony is, I naturally prefer living alone. I like quiet. I like privacy. I don't even want that much. But instead of supporting me, they see that as selfish. They'd rather me sacrifice my happiness so they can avoid facing reality. I've already decided. I'm moving out. I'm not going to be their retirement plan. I'm not going to set that precedent. Because once I start, they'll never stop expecting it. And the longer it goes on, the harder it'll be to break away. By this point, I already knew deep down what I had to do. I had to move out. Not someday. Not eventually, but now. I couldn't keep living in that house where I was treated like the scapegoat slash ATM, while my sister floated around doing whatever she wanted with zero expectations. Every day I stayed, I felt my energy draining away, like I was just existing for other people, not myself. The problem wasn't the decision itself. The problem was how to do it, without them destroying me emotionally before I even got the chance to leave. Because if there's one thing I know about my parents, it's that they won't just let me go. I had a plan. I left, but they wore me down with endless guilt trips until I gave in. And I swore I wouldn't let that happen again. So I started thinking about my options. Option 1. Direct confrontation. I could sit them down and tell them directly, I'm moving out. I found a place. I'll be gone in a month. Straightforward. No lies, no sneaking around. But the reality? That would mean weeks of screaming matches. My mom would cry nonstop. My dad would blow up. My sister would back them up with her holier-than-thou commentary. It would be torture. They wouldn't let me breathe until the day I left. And even then, they might actually try to physically stop me. Knowing my dad, I wouldn't even put it past him to literally block the door. Option 2. Leave quietly. This one was tempting. Just find an apartment in secret, move my stuff out little by little, buy new furniture so I wouldn't have to carry much, and then one day just not come back. Like, go to work and drive to my new place instead of home. Send a text or leave a note explaining after the fact. Clean break, less drama in the moment. The downside, they'd feel betrayed, and I'd probably never hear the end of it. They'd spin it into, look how sneaky and selfish he is for the rest of my life. But honestly, would that even be worse than months of screaming in my face? Option 3. The work excuse. This one felt like the middle ground. Just say I'm moving to be closer to work, which is technically true. I drive an hour each way, 3 times a week, and it would absolutely make sense to move. It wouldn't explain the real reason, their control and guilt, but at least it would make it harder for them to argue. Because what can they really say? No, you're not allowed to move closer to your job? Even my sister couldn't spin that without sounding ridiculous. But the downside is, it would mean hiding the truth, and I'm tired of lying just to protect their feelings. So I sat with these options for a while. I thought about it every single night lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. I knew if I confronted them directly, I'd fold, like I did at 20. It was weird, because the more I thought about it, the more I realized the real question wasn't how to move out. It was, do I care more about their feelings or my future? And for the first time in my life, I chose me. Because every time I chose them, I lost a little more of myself. I became smaller, quieter, angrier, more resentful. And they never noticed because they didn't care. I was the scapegoat, the background character. They didn't care if I was happy as long as I was useful. I couldn't do it. So I made my decision. I was going to leave quietly. Option 2. Rent a place in secret, move my stuff bit by bit, and then just not come back one day. Because the truth is, direct confrontation doesn't work with people like them. They don't want a conversation. They want control. And the only way to get out is to stop giving them the chance to manipulate you. It felt scary, but also freeing. For the first time, I felt like I had a plan that might actually work. I pictured myself in a small apartment, sitting on the floor eating takeout, and it actually made me smile. That might sound dumb, but after years of living for everyone else, the idea of just existing for me felt like paradise. So here's how it actually went down. The leaving part. The part I had been imagining in my head for months. I had been quietly preparing for weeks. I found an apartment, nothing fancy, just a small one-bedroom, kind of old, but it was mine. I bought some cheap furniture off Craigslist and from IKEA, things I could build myself. I started moving little stuff out slowly, like clothes I didn't wear often, books, small electronics. I'd put a few things in my backpack and pretend I was heading out to work or hanging out with a friend. Bit by bit, I was draining my room without them noticing. It felt sneaky, but honestly, it was the only way. If I had announced it, they would have locked me down. I even practiced what I'd do on the actual day. I'd picture myself walking out of the house like normal, with my work bag, but instead of coming back at night, I'd go straight to my new place. No scene, no argument, just gone. Every time I thought about it, my heart would race. I'd get this mix of excitement and guilt. like I was doing something bad, but also something necessary. Kind of like breaking out of prison. You know the guards are gonna scream, but freedom is on the other side. The morning of leaving, I woke up early. My dad was already in the living room watching TV. My mom was in the kitchen. My sister was still asleep. It felt like any other day, which was surreal because I knew it wasn't. I showered, got dressed, packed my bag carefully. This time I stuffed more than usual into it. Laptop, chargers, a few clothes, my important documents. I ate breakfast quietly, keeping my head down so no one would notice I was acting different. My heart was pounding the whole time. When I said I was heading to work, my mom just said okay without looking up. My dad grunted. My sister was still knocked out in bed. Nobody suspected anything. I walked out the door, got in my car, and drove off like I always do. Except instead of heading toward the office, I went straight to my apartment. I had the keys in my pocket, and when I unlocked that door and stepped inside, it hit me. I was out. I sat down on the floor because I didn't even have a couch yet, and just breathed. I didn't realize how much tension I carried in my body until that moment. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for someone to call my name, yell at me, dump their problems on me. It was silent. And instead of feeling lonely, it felt like peace. Of course, the peace didn't last long. Around 5 p.m., when I didn't come home, my phone started blowing up. First, it was my mom. Where are you? Are you okay? Then it escalated. Why aren't you home? Don't do this. Then my dad started calling. I didn't answer. Then my sister texted, wow, you're really doing this. You're so selfish. Then a long paragraph about how I was hurting mom and dad, and how I only cared about myself. Classic move. Backing up the parents, making me the villain, while she gets to stay in her comfy little bubble. Eventually, I sent one message in the family group chat. It said, I've moved into my own place. I need independence and privacy. I'm not abandoning you, but I can't keep living at home. Please respect my decision. That was it. Simple. Clear. No excuses. The responses were exactly what I expected. My mom started spamming me with crying emojis and paragraphs about how she felt betrayed. My dad sent angry texts about how ungrateful I was, how I'd regret this, how family is supposed to stick together. My sister chimed in with her usual selfish nonsense. But here's the difference this time. I didn't cave. I put my phone on silent, tossed it across the room, and sat on the floor eating cheap Chinese takeout out of a carton. And even though I could feel the guilt gnawing at me, there was this overwhelming sense of relief. Like, yeah, they're going to be pissed, but I finally did it. I finally chose myself. The next few days were rough, not gonna lie. They kept calling, kept texting. My dad even showed up at my job one afternoon, trying to convince me to come back. I told him politely but firmly that I wasn't moving home. He called me cold and walked out. My mom sent me voice notes crying about how she couldn't sleep without me there. My sister kept saying I was destroying the family. It was a lot, but I stayed put. Every day that I didn't give in made me stronger. And the thing that really stood out? The double standard. When my sister moved in with her boyfriend a year later, my parents didn't call it betrayal. They didn't call her selfish. They told everyone she was starting her adult life and acted proud of her. But when I did the exact same thing, I was a traitor. She gets praised for independence, I get punished for it. But despite all of it, I don't regret leaving quietly. Direct confrontation would have destroyed me emotionally before I even made it out the door. Sneaking out gave me the chance to escape on my terms. And sitting there that first night, eating takeout in silence, no one demanding anything from me, it felt like the first real breath I'd taken in years. Leaving day wasn't perfect, and it wasn't clean, but it was mine. And for once, that was enough. So here's the part that honestly still makes me shake my head when I think about it. After I left, the whole house dynamic cracked. Like for years, I'd been the one holding everything together, even though they never admitted it. I was the one they could dump their problems on, the one who absorbed all the emotional weight, the one who made the money. And when I finally left, it was like they didn't know what to do. They had built their whole system around me carrying everything. And when I stopped carrying it, it collapsed. But then reality started to hit them. Bills started piling up. Debt collectors started calling more often. My dad still hadn't found steady work. My mom's job was still shaky. And the funny thing? They just assumed my sister would step in if I wasn't around. They thought, well, she loves us. She's the good one. She'll help. Except she didn't. When they asked her for money, she straight up said no. Not even a soft no, a hard no. She told them she had her own life to worry about, her own plans. She had just moved in with her boyfriend, and she said she wasn't about to ruin her future for their mistakes. And that's when I realized something wild. She had learned from watching me. She saw what happened when I gave in, when I sacrificed myself over and over, and she decided she wasn't going to be me, which honestly is kind of hilarious. My parents were shocked. They couldn't process it. This was the daughter they praised for everything, defended at all costs, called special and sensitive her whole life. And now here she was, telling them no. They didn't know how to handle it. My mom cried about how she never expected this from her baby. My dad ranted about how young people have no respect anymore. And my sister? She just shrugged it off and went back to her life. For years, they leaned on me, assuming I'd never leave. And when I did, they assumed she would take my place. And when she didn't, they were left with nothing. No backup plan, no safety net, just the consequences of their own choices. The best part? Relatives started noticing. At first, they believed my parents' version, that I abandoned them. But then they started asking questions. Why are you depending so much on your kids? They're both in their early 20s. What happened to your savings? Why aren't you working? And the more questions they got, the less sympathy they got. Some even called them irresponsible to their faces. My mom hated that. My dad tried to brush it off, but you could tell it stung. For once, people weren't blaming me. They were blaming them. And honestly, that was the karma I'd been waiting for. Because for years, every problem in the house was somehow my fault. If my sister was upset, it was because I wasn't supportive enough. If my mom was stressed, it was because I didn't help enough. If my dad was angry, it was because I wasn't grateful enough. Everything fell on me. And now, with me gone, they couldn't use me as the scapegoat anymore. They had to face the truth. The problems were theirs. It hit harder when my sister kept refusing to step in. They begged her multiple times, and every time she refused. She even told them point blank, "That's not my responsibility," which is funny because that's all I wanted to say for years, but never could. Hearing that come from her must have cut deep. And that's when the disappointment really set in. Not just at me, who they always assumed would fail them, but at her, who they thought would never let them down. The shift was brutal. They went from acting like she was this perfect angel to quietly resenting her. My mom even complained to me once, ironic, right? That she never thought your sister would be this cold. I almost laughed out loud. Cold? Really? You ignored me for years, dumped everything on me, and now you're shocked that she doesn't want to carry your mistakes either? That's karma. And the irony didn't stop there. Not long after she moved in with her boyfriend, the relationship fell apart. He dumped her, and of course she went straight back to my parents' house. Suddenly, the golden child who always got to find herself was back under their roof. No independence, no backup plan. Watching them scramble to comfort her, while realizing she wasn't the savior they imagined, was its own kind of karma. The very person they put on a pedestal ended up just as dependent as they made her. And me? I was finally free, sitting in my apartment, paying my own bills, enjoying my own space, while they sat in that house realizing the system they built. I'm not gonna lie, part of me felt guilty at first. Like maybe I should have gone back. Maybe I should have helped. But then I remembered all the times I begged for attention and got ignored. All the times I was blamed for things that weren't my fault. All the times my sister got praised for breathing, while I got criticized for not doing enough. And the guilt faded. Because this wasn't on me. It never was. If anything, the biggest karma of all was that they finally had to see me for what I really was. Not their villain, not their scapegoat, not their retirement plan. Just their son. And if they wanted me in their lives, they'd have to actually respect me. So do I owe them anything? I owe them basic respect. And maybe contact on my own terms. But I don't owe them my paycheck, my independence, or a life lived only for their comfort.